first feature of the world is that every country you arrive at, there's a man with a hat and a badge and a gun who checks your papers. So the first most obvious feature of the world is not that it's flat, not that it's global, not that it's unrestricted, but that it is enormously restricted in terms of the movement of people.
The US policy has become a mousetrap because if you go in, it's very costly to go back out. Migration and remittances represent a huge potential development tool. If we think of people as individuals, obviously migration implies the possibility of enormous increases in income per capita, increases that at the personal level could not be achieved through a sustained period of growth of many, many, many years. So it allows for potential increases at the personal level, and it allows for potential development impacts at the aggregate level in the sending countries. And still, migration has not been considered as one of the policy tools of development. And policies around migration are not on the forefront of discussions on policies that might help promote development.
The poor make different amounts from month to month, and as a result, for example, if you're a rural farmer, you'll have some months in which there's a lot of income flow and many months in which there's not much income flow at all. This generates a massive smoothing demand, which savings can fill.
The question in my mind is, if the US admits selectively more engineers, nurses, and scientists, many of them from developing countries, what happens to the number of engineers, nurses, and scientists in developing countries? It's not at all clear that the departure of a skilled person from a developing country equals the loss of 1.00 person from a developing country. Skilled emigration can tend to create skills, and it's something that should be pondered, I think, by people seeking to limit the movement of skilled workers in the name of development.
Immigrants have provided us so many resources, and these are resources which we increasingly need today, including workers, both at the high end and at the lower end. We all are in this to make each group of immigrants that come into the United States to bring them up to speed, to become as productive as citizens as possible.
Immigration is a development tool, but if we start with development as people, not place, then the answer to the question, is migration good for development, is just completely trivial. Of course it's good for human well-being, because by being a voluntary choice of human beings, people do it when they're made better off.
I think there's fundamentally, some conflicts of interest between what would be good for U.S. on development policy and what's good for the developing world. And what I think we should be trying to do is think about, are there ways to try and find areas where that conflict of interest is not stark?
I would emphasize the importance, a constructive role, both for rich countries like the U.S. and the poor countries, of the back and forth, not the stock. Leave aside what we usually think of, which is the Statue of Liberty. You're going to become a U.S. citizen. This is permanent. We're focusing. That's important, but we're focusing too much on that. I would make it easier to send remittances. I'd make it easier for workers to come and go back and forth, to have legitimate temporary visas where they can work here legitimately, and it's stabilizing.
People were not necessarily thinking of migrating for life. They were thinking of migrating as part of a life cycle, a period in which they might go, sacrifice something in terms of social connections, family connections, and do some savings, and then go back and live with the people that they love and the people that they know in a culture where they understand all the jokes.
People are going to come, they're going to work, and they want to go back. But the fact is that our system doesn't even allow for that. That's what we need to fix. In this economy, this is not a time to be advocating for massive expansion of worker visa programs. On the other hand, it is the time to be advocating for the establishment and formulation of worker visa programs that serve the needs of our economy. So we have to be very, very savvy and clear about how we see the value of immigrants and immigration to the nation moving forward.
Migration can be enriched even in terms of the domestic political debate, in the moral justification for the domestic political debate, with a certain international development perspective.